Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying, gets reborn as Meliodas, the leader of the 7 deadly sins, inside of the anime High School DxD. What will Meliodas do inside of High School DxD?
Energy flaring. Rain array. This is over. Surrender now, and I'll make your end painless. Rain array's laugh was jagged, unhinged. Surrender? To devils? Never. She flared both hands, forming twin spears of light. I'll kill you all. I'll tear that girl apart piece by piece and scatter her remains. Not happening, I said, stepping closer, my grin widening. Her fury hit its peak. With a scream, she hurled both spears, one at Rias, one at Asia. Asia-chan! Issei shouted, throwing himself forward. His gauntlet pulsed violently, crimson light flaring. Boost! He smashed his fist against the incoming spear, shattering it in a burst of sparks. The force still sent him flying back, crashing against the altar steps. Asia gasped. Issei-san! The other spear struck Ria's crimson barrier, shattering it but leaving her unharmed. She gritted her teeth, her aura flaring brighter. Rainaray's wings beat hard as she rose again, summoning more and more spears around her in a deadly storm. The church glowed with their light, the air trembling from the sheer number. Akeno's chuckle was gone now, her eyes sharp. Aira, that's too many to toy with. Rias raised her hand. Brace yourselves! Rainaray screamed, unleashing the entire storm of spears. I grinned, stepping in front of them all. My aura flared black and heavy, swirling around me as I raised both hands. Full counter! Every single spear reversed instantly, the storm turning back on its creator. Rainaray's eyes widened in horror as the wave of light slammed into her, detonating across the ceiling and walls. The church shook violently, dust raining from above as her scream filled the hall. When the light faded, Rainaray stood barely upright, her wings scorched, her outfit torn. She was bleeding, her chest heaving with ragged breaths. You, she hissed, her voice broken. I'll kill you. Issei forced himself up again, his gauntlet pulsing brighter than ever. Boost! 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 He raised it, his eyes blazing. No! I'll protect Asia. Even if it kills me. Asia's tears spilled as she reached toward him. Issei-san! Rainaray staggered forward, summoning another spear despite her broken state. Then die with her. Her spear flared as she lunged one last time. I stepped forward again, my grin never fading. Guess I'll finish this. Chapter 23, The End of Rainaray. The church was crumbling around us, the air filled with the stench of scorched stone and feathers. Rainaray staggered forward, her violet eyes burning with fury, her body trembling from wounds. Her spear of light shimmered violently in her grip, unstable from her own desperation. You're all dead, she screamed, her voice cracking. I'll kill you all. She lunged. Asia-chan! Issei shouted, throwing himself forward. His gauntlet pulsed violently, the jewel glowing crimson. Boost! Boost! But his legs wavered, his body still battered from earlier blows. Rias raised her hand, crimson spheres swirling around her, her voice sharp. Meliodas, now! Yup, I said lightly, stepping forward. Rainaray's spear stabbed down at me. I caught it in one hand, the light burning against my palm. Her eyes widened, her scream twisting into disbelief. What? I smirked. Nice try. With a twist, I shattered the spear into fragments of fading light. Before she could react, my fist slammed into her stomach. The impact sent her flying back across the hall, smashing through shattered pews before crashing against the altar wall. She coughed blood, wings twitching as she forced herself up again, glaring at me with hatred. You bastard! Yup, I said cheerfully, walking toward her. Issei groaned, pushing himself upright. Meliodas-san. Asia clutched at her chest, her eyes wide and wet. Please, don't let her hurt anyone anymore. I gave her a small grin. Don't worry. I won't. Rainare screamed again, forming another spear of light, her aura crackling violently. She charged once more, swinging it down with every ounce of strength left in her body. This time, I didn't bother with full counter. I simply caught the spear mid-swing, snapped it in half with one hand, and drove my knee into her gut. She gasped, blood spilling from her lips, before my palm slammed into her chest and sent her skidding across the floor again. Give up, I said flatly. Her eyes burned with rage and desperation. Never. I am a servant of the fallen. I am. Annoying, I interrupted, appearing in front of her in an instant. My fist smashed into her jaw, sending her crashing through the altar itself. Stone split apart, the ritual circle beneath it shattering completely. Dust and fragments scattered across the church as Rainare's body slumped against the rubble. She coughed, wings twitching weakly, her eyes glaring up at me with hatred. I can't lose, not to you, not to devils, not to her. Her gaze flicked to Asia, who shrank back against the wall, trembling. I crouched down in front of Rainare, smirking faintly. You already lost. Her lips trembled, fury twisting into something like disbelief. No. I raised my hand. Bye. My palm struck her chest, the force blasting her into the wall again. This time, she didn't get back up. Her wings twitched once, then went still. The church fell silent. Issei collapsed to his knees, panting hard. His gauntlet flickered, the glow dimming. She's really gone. Rias lowered her hand slowly, her crimson spheres fading. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried a quiet weight. Yes. It's over. Akeno floated down lightly, her sparks fading into nothing. Her soft chuckle returned, faint but steady. Era. That was quite the performance, Meliodas-kun. Yup, I said with a grin, dusting my hands off. Asia ran forward suddenly, throwing her arms around Issei. Issei-san. You're safe. He froze, his face turning bright red instantly. Asia-chan? Why yet? I am fine. She buried her face against his chest, trembling. I was so scared. I thought I'd never see you again. Issei's eyes widened, his fists clenching. I promised I'd save you. And I meant it. I leaned against what was left of a pew, smirking. Cute. Issei glared at me, still blushing furiously. Shut up. Ria stepped closer to Asia, her voice softening. Asia-san. Are you hurt? Asia shook her head quickly. And no, just tired. Rias nodded. Good. You're safe now. Asia smiled weakly, tears still glistening in her eyes. Thank you, all of you. Akeno touched her chin with a finger, smiling gently. Era. Such a sweet girl. Konako and Kaiba entered the ruined church then, dust and blood on their uniforms. Kaiba's blade was still faintly glowing, while Konako dusted crumbs from her hand. It's done outside, Kaiba said politely. Middlet and Donazik have been defeated. Konako blinked slowly. Annoying fight. Good timing, I said with a grin. Kaiba's eyes flicked toward Rainare's unmoving body before back to Rias. And here. Rias nodded once. Finished. Issei's arms were still awkwardly around Asia, who refused to let go. His face was redder than ever, but for once, he didn't pull away. Asia whispered softly, "I don't want to be alone anymore." Issei's expression softened, his gauntlet flickering faintly as he tightened his hold. "You're not. Not anymore." I grinned. "Now that's the best thing you've said all night." Issei shot me another glare. "You're the worst." "Yup," I said cheerfully. The group gathered, the tension finally easing from their shoulders. The church was wrecked, its walls cracked and its altar destroyed. But Asia was free, Reborn defeated, and the peerage still standing. The fight was over. For now. Chapter 24, Asia's New Beginning. The church was quiet at last. Dust still floated in the air, broken pews scattered across the floor, and the scent of scorched stone lingered from Reborn's desperate storm of spears. Asia sat close against Issei, her small hands clutching his sleeve as if she feared letting go would make her vanish again. Her eyes were red from tears, but her breathing had steadied. Issei's face was still bright red, his free hand hovering awkwardly in the air before he finally patted her shoulder. It's okay, Asia-chan. You're safe now. Really safe." She looked up at him with soft, wet eyes. "Issei-san, thank you." Issei swallowed hard, looking like he was about to faint. "Why yet? And no problem." I leaned against a broken piece of the altar, smirking. "Cute." "Shut up." Issei shot back, still red-faced. Asia giggled softly despite herself, hiding her mouth with one hand. Rias walked forward slowly, her crimson aura fading completely now. She stopped in front of Asia, her expression calm but her eyes carrying something gentler. "Asia Argento." Asia blinked, sitting up straighter. "Why yes. You've lost your place in the church," Rias said plainly. "The Fallen used you as a tool. But you don't have to be alone anymore." Asia's eyes widened. I don't." Rias shook her head softly, her long crimson hair swaying. "No. If you'll have it, I'll give you a new home. A new family." Asia's lips parted, her breath catching. "A family." Issei's head whipped toward Rias, eyes wide. "Wait, Baku. You mean?" Rias nodded once, her gaze steady on Asia. "Yes. Become part of my peerage, Asia. Be my bishop." The silence hung heavy for a moment. Asia's eyes shimmered, fresh tears forming. "Me? A devil?" Ria's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Yes. It's the only way. Otherwise, the church will never accept you again. The Fallen will always hunt you. But with me, you'll be safe." Issei's fists clenched, his face pale. But Baku, does she have to?" "Issei," Rias cut him off, her tone sharper. "This is the only way to protect her." Asia looked down at her hands, trembling. Her lips quivered before she looked up again, her eyes wet but shining. "If it means I can stay with everyone, if it means I won't be alone, then, yes." She bowed her head slightly. "Please, let me stay." Ria's lips curved faintly. "Good." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a crimson bishop piece. The glow pulsed as she held it above Asia's chest. "Asia Argento. From this moment forward, you are my bishop." The piece sank into Asia's chest in a flash of red light. She gasped softly, clutching at her heart as the glow spread through her body. The pain of the ritual earlier faded completely, replaced by something warm and steady. When the light dimmed, she looked up again, tears spilling down her cheeks. I feel different." "You're one of us now," Rias said firmly. Asia's lips trembled before she smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Thank you so much. Issei cheered loudly, punching the air with his gauntlet fist. Yes. Asia-chan's safe. And she's with us now. Akeno giggled softly, floating down closer. Aira, Aira. How adorable. Our little family grows again. Kaiba bowed politely, his smile gentle. Welcome, Asia-san. Konako crunched into a cookie she'd pulled from her pocket, her voice flat. Troublesome. But, welcome. Asia sniffled, wiping at her tears with her sleeve, smiling warmly. Thank you, everyone. Issei leaned close, still grinning. See? I told you. You're not alone anymore, Asia-chan. Her cheeks flushed softly, and she nodded. Yes. Issei-san. I clapped my hands together once, grinning wide. Now this is a party. Issei glared at me. Don't ruin the mood. Not ruining it, I said cheerfully. Just pointing out how cute you two look. Asia giggled again, covering her mouth with her hands. Meliodas-san. Issei's face turned scarlet. Shut up already. Rias shook her head faintly, though her lips curved just slightly at the corners. The group began to move out of the ruined church, supporting Asia between them. She leaned on Issei most of the way, much to his flustered delight. I followed behind, hands in my pockets, watching the way she smiled softly now instead of trembling. By the time we reached the outside, the night air was cool and quiet. The bodies of fallen minions were gone, dissipated into nothing after defeat. The broken gates lay half buried in the dirt. Asia looked back at the church one last time, her expression soft. That was my home once. Issei frowned, scratching his head awkwardly. Forget that place. You've got a better home now. Her cheeks pinked, and she nodded. Yes, you're right. I grinned. Besides, devils throw better parties. Meliodas-san, she gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Akeno chuckled softly. Aira, Aira. He's not wrong. Issei groaned. Stop corrupting her. Too late, I said cheerfully. Konako blinked at me, munching another cookie. Pervert. Still cute, I replied instantly. She looked away, muttering under her breath. Rias sighed softly but didn't argue. Instead, she turned toward the magic circle forming beneath us. Let's go home. The crimson light rose around us, and in the next instant, the ruined church was gone. The familiar warmth of the occult research club returned. The shelves of books, the glowing lamps, the polished table, it all felt lighter now. Asia sat on the sofa, blinking around the room in awe. It's so warm here, she whispered. Rias nodded, her voice steady. This is your new home, Asia. You're safe here. Asia's lips trembled again, and she bowed her head. Thank you, Rias-san. Issei sat close beside her, grinning. Yet. You'll see, Asia-chan. This place is way better than any church. Asia giggled softly. I already feel that way. Her hands clasped together tightly, her smile soft. I finally have a family again. Everyone in the room smiled faintly at her words. I leaned back on the sofa across from them, my grin wide. Told you. Not a bad place to get stuck. Issei groaned, glaring at me. You never stop, do you? Yup, I said cheerfully. Asia's gentle laugh filled the room again, softer than before but stronger now, and the sound lingered in the air. Chapter 25, Asia at Kuaha. The next morning, the sun cast a soft glow over Kuaha Academy. Students filled the courtyard, chattering about their summer plans, tests, and gossip. The school gates opened wide as usual, but today, there was someone new walking between them. Asia Argento. She wore the QA Academy uniform, the blouse and skirt neatly pressed. She clutched her school bag tightly in both hands, her green eyes wide with nerves and curiosity. Her blonde hair glistened faintly under the morning light, catching the attention of nearly every student that passed. Whispers immediately followed. "Who's that girl? She's cute. Is she a transfer student?" Asia lowered her head shyly, her cheeks pink. Issei walked right beside her, grinning nervously as he tried to shield her from the staring. Don't worry, Asia-chan. This happens all the time with new students. Just ignore them. Issei-san, she murmured, gripping her bag tighter. I strolled on her other side, hands in my pockets, grinning. Relax. They're just staring because you're adorable. Asia gasped softly, her face turning red. Meliodas-san. Issei whipped toward me, his face almost as red as hers. Stop saying weird stuff like that in front of her. Yup, I said lightly. Asia giggled softly despite her nerves, covering her mouth with one hand. As we stepped further into the courtyard, more students whispered, some glaring openly. Mostly boys. Why is she with Hyudu? First Rias-senpai and Akeno-senpai, now another girl. This is unfair. Issei groaned, clutching his head. Ugh. I can already hear them hating me. Yup, I said with a grin. They're jealous. Asia tilted her head innocently. Jealous? Because you're cute, I answered casually. Her blush deepened, and she glanced down quickly. I don't know what to say to that. Issei's hands flailed. Asia-chan. Don't listen to him. He's always like this. I smirked. Yup. The first stop was the faculty office. Rias was already there, standing tall and composed as she handled the transfer paperwork. Her crimson hair shone brightly under the lights, and her presence drew the attention of every teacher. Asia Argento, Rias said smoothly, handing over a form. A transfer student from overseas. She'll be under my supervision. The teachers nodded quickly, not daring to question Rias too much. Asia bowed politely, her voice soft. Please take care of me. Very well, the homeroom teacher said, adjusting his glasses. Hyudu and Meliodas, since you're both in the same class, guide her around today. Yup, I said cheerfully. Issei saluted awkwardly. I'll leave it to me. When we entered the classroom, the whispers exploded again. Another girl with Hyudu. Seriously, what's going on? Who is she? Asia stepped in behind us, clutching her bag nervously, her cheeks flushed. The teacher cleared his throat. We have a new transfer student today. Please introduce yourself. Asia stepped forward timidly, bowing her head. My name is Asia Argento. I'm from overseas. Please be kind to me. A murmur rippled across the room. So cute. She looks like an angel. Why is she sitting near Hyudu? Asia quickly made her way to the seat next to Issei, smiling faintly as she set her bag down. Issei beamed at her nervously, scratching his head. Don't worry, Asia-chan. If you need anything, I'll help you. She giggled softly, nodding. Thank you, Issei-san. I leaned back in my chair, grinning. Guess school just got more fun. Issei glared. Don't mess with her here, Meliodas-san. Yup, I replied with a smirk. The morning passed in a blur of introductions and stares. Asia listened intently in class, her notebook filling with careful notes even though half of it clearly went over her head. Whenever the teacher asked her something, she blushed brightly but answered politely, earning admiration from the class. During break, a group of girls approached her. Asia-chan, your hair is so pretty. Do you want to eat lunch with us sometime? Asia blinked in surprise before smiling softly. Thank you. I'd like that. Issei sat at his desk, fists clenched, glaring at the boys whispering in the corner. They're all staring at her. They're planning something, I know it. Yup, I said lazily. Probably. Meliodas-san. Don't just agree with that. I smirked. Relax. If anyone bothers her, I'll deal with it. Issei sighed, dropping his head onto the desk. I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. Asia glanced over, tilting her head. Issei-san? Meliodas-san. I waved a hand. Nothing to worry about. She blinked softly, then smiled. Okay. At lunch, Asia sat with Issei and me under a tree in the courtyard. She opened her neatly packed bento, her eyes sparkling at the simple food inside. I made this myself, she said shyly. Issei's eyes widened. You cook too, Asia-chan. She nodded softly, holding out a piece with chopsticks. Would you like to try some? Issei froze, his face turning crimson. For me? Really? She tilted her head, confused. Yes, is that strange? And no. Not strange at all. He opened his mouth wide. Before she could feed him, I leaned forward, snagging the piece of food with my chopsticks. Don't mind if I do. Asia gasped softly. Meliodas-san. Hey! Issei shouted, nearly falling over. That was mine. Yup, I said with a grin, chewing. Pretty good. Asia's cheeks flushed, but she giggled softly. I can give you more, Issei-san. Issei practically melted, clutching his chest. Asia-chan, you're too kind. Yup, I said cheerfully. And adorable. Issei shouted again. Stop saying that in front of her. Asia covered her mouth with her hand, laughing softly. The rest of the day passed slowly. Asia walked the halls with us, greeting curious students shyly but always smiling. She tripped once on the stairs, but Issei caught her clumsily, nearly falling himself. I smirked, watching them both stumble. By the time classes ended, Asia looked tired but happy, her eyes glowing softly. Today was wonderful. I never thought I'd be able to go to school like this. Issei grinned, rubbing the back of his head. See? It's great, right? And I'll keep helping you, Asia-chan. She smiled warmly at him. Thank you, Issei-san. I stretched, grinning. Well, you survived your first day. That deserves a reward. Asia tilted her head. A reward? Yup. I'll let you sit next to me at dinner. She covered her mouth, giggling softly. Meliodas-san. Issei groaned. You're impossible. Yup, I said cheerfully. Chapter 26, The Phoenix's Claim. The sun had dipped low, painting Kua Academy in a faint orange glow. The occult research club room was warm with the light of the lamps, the familiar scent of tea drifting through the air. Asia sat beside Issei on the sofa, her school bag still on her lap, smiling softly as she recounted little moments from her first day. It was wonderful, she said shyly. Everyone was kind. I even spoke with some of the girls in class. I've never had that before. Issei beamed at her, his cheeks red. See? I told you school life is great, Asia-chan. Her smile brightened. Yes, it really is. I lounged on the other sofa, grinning. And she didn't even run away when people stared. Pretty impressive. Asia blushed faintly. Meliodas-san. Issei groaned, slamming a hand to his face. Why do you always say things like that? Because it's true, I answered easily. Konako munched on a cookie beside us, her small legs dangling. Pervert, she muttered. Still cute, I shot back instantly. She looked away, cheeks puffing slightly as she bit into the cookie harder. Akeno giggled softly, her voice light. Aira, Aira. Things are always lively with you here. Rias, who had been standing by her desk, finally set her cup of tea down with a faint clink. Her gaze swept across the room, her expression calm but sharper than usual. I'm glad Asia is settling in. But there are other matters we need to discuss soon. Issei tilted his head nervously. Oh, other matters. Before Rias could answer, the air in the room changed. A crimson magic circle formed on the wooden floor, larger and brighter than any of the ones we'd seen her summon. The heat it gave off was almost suffocating. The pattern edged itself in gold and flame before the light surged upward. When it faded, a man stood in its place. Tall. Blonde hair slicked perfectly back. Expensive, regal clothing of crimson and gold. His posture screamed arrogance. Riser Fenix. He stood there as though the room belonged to him, his fiery eyes sweeping across everyone inside before fixing directly on Rias. A faint smile touched his lips. Rias, he said smoothly. It's been too long. The room froze. Rias' expression darkened instantly, her hands tightening at her sides. Riser. Akeno's smile faltered slightly, though she still lowered her head politely. Kaiba's eyes narrowed faintly as he moved closer, subtle but protective. Konako stared at the intruder with a blank face, though her cookie paused halfway to her mouth. Issei blinked rapidly, confusion spreading across his face. Who the hell is this guy? Asia tilted her head, her small voice uncertain. He feels strange. I grinned, leaning back against the sofa. So this is the famous fiancé. Riser's eyes flicked toward me briefly, a faint sneer forming before he dismissed me as if I weren't worth his time. His focus returned to Rias. Still playing at running your little club, I see. Rias stepped forward, her voice cold. Why are you here, Riser? He spread his arms wide as if the answer were obvious. To see my bride, of course. The words hit like a stone in the room. Asia gasped softly, her hands clutching her skirt. Issei shot up from the sofa, his face pale. Be bride. He whipped toward Rias, his voice cracking. Bucko, what is he talking about? Rias didn't answer immediately, her gaze fixed hard on Riser. Issei's fists clenched. Don't tell me you. Silence, pawn, Riser cut him off sharply, his tone dripping with disdain. You dare raise your voice in front of me? Know your place. Issei bristled, his gauntlet flickering faintly as his anger spiked. What did you just? I stood lazily, stepping between them before he could lunge. Easy, Issei. He's just trying to get under your skin. Issei blinked at me, still shaking. But. Bucko. Riser chuckled, clearly amused. So this is the pawn you picked up. Pathetic. No wonder you cling to him like a lost puppy, Rias. Rias' eyes narrowed further. Don't speak of my peerage that way. Peerage, Riser repeated mockingly. You call this collection of children a peerage? His eyes scanned the room, lingering on Asia. And this one, she's still trembling like a lamb. This is who you surround yourself with. Asia flinched under his gaze, her hands clutched tightly in her lap. Issei stepped in front of her instantly, glaring at Riser. Don't you dare look at her like that. Riser ignored him, his eyes locking back onto Rias. Enough of this game. Your family has already promised you to me. You know this. Ria's voice was low, sharp. And I told them no. I will choose my own path. Riser's smile twisted. How childish. Do you think you can defy the will of the Phoenix family? Of your own brother? The room grew colder despite the faint heat Riser's presence brought. I stepped forward, my grin widening. You talk too much. Riser's eyes flicked toward me again, his sneer deepening. And who are you supposed to be? Another stray Rias picked up out of pity. Yup, I said cheerfully. And still stronger than you. The room went silent for a moment. Issei's jaw dropped. Asia covered her mouth with her hands, eyes wide. Konako blinked slowly, munching her cookie again. Riser laughed, loud and mocking. Stronger than me? A lowly devil who hides behind a girl's skirts dares to say that to Riser Phoenix. His body flared faintly with flames, the air heating. You must be suicidal. I tilted my head, smirking. Nope. Just honest. Ria's voice cut through sharply. Enough. Both of you. Her crimson aura flared briefly, silencing the heat Riser exuded. She stepped forward, her chin raised. Riser. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I will not marry you. Not now. Not ever. Riser's smirk didn't fade. Then you leave me no choice. I will settle this the proper way. Through a rating game. Issei blinked rapidly, his voice cracking. Our rating game. Kaiba finally spoke, his tone polite but edged. A formal battle between peerages. Akeno's smile returned, though it was sharper now. Era. Things are becoming lively. Rias crossed her arms, her gaze unwavering. If that's what it takes, then so be it. I accept. Asia gasped softly. Rias-san. Riser smirked wider, spreading his arms again. Good. Then prepare yourself. When the time comes, I'll crush your pitiful peerage and drag you to my side as my bride. I stepped closer, my grin never fading. You can try. But you won't like how it ends. Riser's eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond. His magic circle flared again, crimson and gold fire rising. Enjoy your illusions of freedom while you can, Rias. It won't last. With that, the flames consumed him, and he vanished. The silence afterward was thick. Issei collapsed back onto the sofa, his head spinning. What the hell just happened? Asia clutched her hands to her chest, her voice trembling. Rias-san, are you really going to? Rias exhaled slowly, her expression firm. Yes. A rating game is the only way. If we win, I will be free of him. Issei shot up again, determination sparking in his eyes. Then we'll win. Right, Asia-chan? She gasped softly before nodding. Why yes. I stretched, smirking. Sounds fun. Count me in. Rias gave me a long look, then nodded faintly. The game was set. Chapter 27, Issei's Resolve. The crimson flames of Riser's teleportation circle had faded, leaving only the faint scent of smoke in the occult research club room. The silence that followed was heavy, the air weighed down by his arrogance. Asia sat frozen on the sofa, her hands pressed tightly together on her lap, her green eyes wide. Konako chewed the last bite of her cookie, her expression unreadable. Kaiba stood calmly near the window, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword at his hip, though the blade wasn't drawn. Akeno's faint smile had returned, but her eyes glimmered with sharpness. Issei broke the silence. Damn it, he shouted, slamming his fists down onto the table. The sound echoed through the room, making Asia flinch. His face was red, his teeth clenched. That bastard! He just waltzed in here like he owns everything. Rias remained near her desk, her arms folded, her crimson hair cascading down her back. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were harder than usual. Issei turned to her, his voice cracking. Baku. Is what he said true? Are you really supposed to marry that guy? Ria's lips pressed into a thin line. Yes. Issei's eyes widened, his jaw dropping. What? But you hate him. He's a total jerk. Rias nodded slightly. Exactly. Which is why I will never accept it. The rating game will decide everything. Issei's fists trembled. I don't care about the game or the rules or whatever. I can't stand him. The way he looked at you, the way he insulted Asia-chan, and the way he treated us like trash. Asia's hands clasped tighter, her voice soft but trembling. It's okay, Issei-san. I didn't mind. You should mind, Asia-chan. Issei snapped, startling her. His face softened instantly, his hand reaching toward her. Sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. I don't want anyone talking about you like that. Her eyes widened, and her cheeks flushed softly. Issei-san. I leaned back on the sofa across from them, smirking. Well, at least he's honest when he's mad. Issei whipped toward me, his face red. You're not helping. Yup, I said cheerfully. Konako spoke up, her voice flat as always. You're weak. Issei flinched as if struck. What? She bit into another cookie, her expression unchanged. You can't beat someone like him. Not like this. Issei's fists tightened, his body trembling. I know. Kaiba's voice joined in, calm and polite. Konako-chan isn't wrong. Riser Phoenix is a high-class devil with regeneration abilities unlike most. He's not someone an untrained pawn can stand against directly. Issei's teeth clenched, his voice rising. Then what am I supposed to do? Just sit here while he takes Bakuo away? No, Rias answered firmly, her eyes locking on him. You're going to train. All of you. The rating game is the only chance we have, and we'll take it. Issei froze, her words sinking in. Rias stepped closer, her aura faintly flaring around her. I will not belong to Riser Phoenix. I will fight for my freedom, and I expect every one of you to fight with me. Kaiba bowed slightly. Of course, Baku. Konako nodded once, still chewing. Okay. Akeno chuckled softly, her voice gentle but firm. Era. We'll have to push ourselves harder than ever, won't we? Asia's eyes widened, her voice small. Me too. Rias nodded. Yes, Asia. You're part of my peerage now. You'll need to understand your role in battle. Asia looked down at her hands, her lips trembling. I'll do my best. I don't want to be useless. Issei shot up instantly, pointing at her. You're not useless, Asia-chan. Don't ever say that again. Asia gasped softly, her eyes glistening. Issei-san. He turned back toward Rias, his face set. I'll do it too. Whatever training you want, I'll do it. I don't care how hard it is. His gauntlet flared faintly in response, the jewel pulsing. Boost. Issei held up his fist, shaking with determination. I'll get stronger. I swear it. I won't let that bastard insult us again, and I won't let him take you away, Baku. Rias watched him carefully, her expression unreadable for a long moment before she nodded faintly. Good. I expect nothing less. I leaned forward, smirking. Now that's the spirit. Finally sounding like a man. Issei turned red instantly, pointing at me with his gauntlet. You always make fun of me. But this time I mean it. Yup, I said lightly. That's why I said it was good. Issei blinked, thrown off by my simple agreement. Asia giggled softly, covering her mouth with her hand. You too, you always argue. Akeno chuckled as well, her soft voice carrying amusement. Era. It's almost like brothers. Issei groaned. Don't say that. Konako blinked at me, her voice flat. Still a pervert. Still cute, I replied instantly, smirking. She turned away, muttering under her breath. The tension in the room eased slightly, though the weight of what was coming lingered. Rias finally spoke again, her tone calm but commanding. Tomorrow, we begin training. Prepare yourselves. This rating game will decide everything. Issei clenched his gauntlet again, his voice steady. Good. I'll be ready. Asia looked at him with admiration, her smile soft. I believe in you, Issei-san. Issei's face turned scarlet, and he scratched his cheek awkwardly. Why yet? Thanks, Asia-chan. I smirked, leaning back against the sofa again. Looks like we've got some work to do. Chapter 28, The Rules of Battle. The lamps in the Occult Research Club flickered softly, casting warm light across the room. Everyone was gathered. Ria stood near her desk, her crimson hair catching the glow as she faced us with her usual calm authority. Asia sat on the sofa, her hands folded nervously in her lap. Issei sat beside her, jittery, his gauntlet faintly glowing even while dormant. Konako perched on the armrest, nibbling a cookie. Kaiba leaned against the wall near the window, his sword absent but his expression steady. Akeno stood near Rias, her faint smile softening the atmosphere. I leaned back casually in my seat, grinning. Rias cleared her throat, her expression tightening slightly. Now that Riser has issued his challenge, there are things I must explain to you all. Some of you already know, but others do not. This will decide our future. Issei sat up straighter, his hands gripping his knees. Bibuku, about that, what exactly is a rating game? He said it like we should have known already. Rias nodded once. Of course. Let me start from the beginning. Rating games are formal matches between devil peerages. High-class devils settle disputes this way, whether over territory, prestige, or marriage contracts. Her last words tightened the air. Asia fidgeted nervously, glancing at Issei, who clenched his fists. So it's like a sports match? Issei asked, tilting his head. Akeno chuckled softly, her voice teasing. A very bloody one. Issei flinched. Yet. Kaiba spoke calmly, his polite tone steady. It's more like a war, Hyudo-kun. A battlefield is created, and both sides place their peerages within it. The objective is simple, defeat the other king. Asia's eyes widened. Defeat the king? So. Rias-san would be. Rias nodded. Yes. I am the king of this peerage. If I fall, the match is over. Asia gasped softly. Issei shot to his feet, pointing at her. Then we'll just make sure that doesn't happen. We'll protect you, Baku. Ria's expression softened slightly, though her tone remained serious. That is the goal. But remember, Riser is also a king. His entire peerage will fight to protect him, just as you will for me. Konako munched another bite of her cookie, her voice flat. Annoying. Issei scratched his head nervously. So it's like a giant team fight. Yup, I said with a grin. And you're the weakest piece. Issei whirled toward me, his face red. Don't say it like that. It's true, Konako added bluntly. Issei groaned, collapsing back onto the sofa. Ugh! Asia leaned closer, her soft voice gentle. Why you re not weak, Issei-san? You've saved me twice already. Issei blinked at her, his face turning red. Asia-chan. I smirked. See? She believes in you. Don't screw it up. Issei shouted, his face crimson. Why you don't have to put it like that? Asia giggled softly behind her hands. Rias continued, her tone calm but sharp. Each peerage piece has its own role. Rook, knight, bishop, queen, pawn. They function in battle similar to a chessboard. Konako is my rook, powerful and durable. Kaiba is my knight, fast and precise. Akeno is my queen, versatile and dangerous. Akeno giggled softly at the praise. Era. Dangerous. I like the sound of that. Ria's gaze shifted to Asia. And you, Asia, are my bishop. Your role is to support with twilight healing. You will not be on the front lines, but your presence is just as vital. Asia placed a hand over her chest, her voice trembling. I'll do my best. Rias nodded once before turning to Issei. And you, are my pawn. But pawns have unique potential. With promotion, they can become any piece depending on where they move within the battlefield. Issei blinked, scratching his head. Promotion? So I can, like, transform. Kaiba chuckled softly, polite as ever. Something like that. Ria's voice sharpened. Do not underestimate your role, Hyudu. Pawns can become the strongest weapons if used correctly. Issei swallowed hard, his fists clenching. Right. I won't let you down, Baku. His gauntlet flared faintly. Boost. Rias folded her arms. Riser's peerage is large. He has filled every piece, and many of them are experienced. His regenerative ability as a phoenix makes him particularly difficult to defeat. Issei frowned. Regenerative. Kaiba explained gently. His body heals instantly from almost any wound, Hyudo-kun. He can regenerate from fire and even reattach limbs. Issei's jaw dropped. Wow, that's cheating. Akeno giggled softly. Era. It's his bloodline. No amount of complaining will change it. Issei groaned, grabbing his head. How the hell are we supposed to beat a guy like that? Simple, I said with a grin. Hit him harder. Issei whipped toward me, his face twitching. That's not advice. Yup, I replied cheerfully. Asia giggled softly again, her hands covering her mouth. Ria's voice cut through, calm but firm. No opponent is invincible. We will train to exploit his weaknesses and strengthen our own. That is why I will be pushing each of you harder than ever before. Issei sat up straighter again, his fists clenched. Good. Bring it on. I'll get stronger, I swear it. Asia's voice was soft, but steady. I'll work hard too. I don't want to be a burden. Issei turned to her instantly, waving his hands. Asia-chan, you're not a burden. Don't say that again. She blushed softly, lowering her head. Okay. Konako finished her cookie and stood, brushing crumbs from her skirt. When do we start? Tomorrow, Rias said firmly. Training begins at dawn. All of you should rest tonight. Akeno chuckled lightly, her eyes glinting. Era. Tomorrow will be fun. Kaiba bowed his head politely. Understood, Baku. Issei pumped his fist, his gauntlet flickering. Boost. I'll do it. I'll crush that chicken bastard. Asia blinked. Sea chicken. I smirked. Not a bad nickname. He does have wings. Issei pointed at me instantly. Don't encourage me. Yup, I said casually. Asia laughed softly, and even Ria's lips curved faintly before she turned away. The night settled heavier around us, but the resolve in the room was clear. Tomorrow, it would begin. Chapter 29, The Pawn's Struggle. Morning light filtered into the occult research club room. Everyone was gathered earlier than usual, dressed more casually. Ria stood at the front, her crimson hair gleaming as she looked over her peerage. Today begins our training, she announced firmly. The rating game will not wait for us to be ready. We will make the time we have count. Issei clenched his fists, his eyes blazing with determination. I'll do it, Bucko. I'll get stronger, no matter what it takes. Asia clasped her hands together nervously, looking at him with worry. Please don't push yourself too hard, Issei-san. He scratched the back of his head, laughing awkwardly. I'll be fine. Don't worry, Asia-chan. Yup, I said with a smirk. Until he collapses. Issei spun toward me, face red. I won't collapse. Sure, I replied cheerfully. Akeno chuckled softly, her tone playful. Era. This will be entertaining. Konako blinked, her voice flat. He'll faint. Kaiba smiled politely, standing near the window. We'll support each other. That's what matters. Rias raised her hand, her magic circle glowing beneath us. Let's go. Light consumed the room, and in the next instant, we stood in a vast open space outside of Kuaha. The training grounds. The field stretched wide, enclosed by barriers of crimson energy. The ground was firm, flat, and ready for combat. Magic lamps lined the edges, glowing faintly even in daylight. Rias turned, her voice carrying clearly. Each of you will focus on your roles. Kaiba, refine your sword techniques. Konako, continue strength conditioning. Akeno, work on balancing your demonic power and lightning. They each nodded. Her gaze fell on Issei. And you, will learn to control your sacred gear. Issei looked down at his gauntlet, the red jewel glinting faintly. Boosted gear. Rias nodded. Yes. The Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet. You must master it, or we have no chance. Issei clenched his fist, his gauntlet glowing brighter. Then let's start. The jewel pulsed. Boost. The surge of power hit him, his muscles tightening, but his body staggered under the sudden weight. He almost fell, catching himself at the last second. W.O. Rias narrowed her eyes. Control it. Don't let it control you. Issei gritted his teeth. Right. He tried moving forward, but his steps were heavy, clumsy. His punch swung wide and slow, his momentum carrying him too far. He stumbled and fell flat on the dirt. Asia gasped, rushing forward. Issei-san. He pushed himself up quickly, forcing a laugh. I am fine. Totally fine. I grinned, leaning against a nearby rock. You look fine. Flat on your face. Shut up, he shouted, pointing at me with his gauntlet. I'll show you. The jewel pulsed again. Boost. The surge nearly buckled his knees. His face strained as he tried another swing. His fist cracked the ground, but his arm trembled violently afterward. Asia clapped her hands together softly. Why you did it, Issei-san? He laughed nervously, sweat dripping down his forehead. SC? Not bad. Yup, I said with a smirk. Until your arm gives out. His gauntlet fizzled, the glow dimming. He collapsed to his knees, panting hard. Damn it! Asia crouched beside him, her healing light gently covering his arm. Please, don't hurt yourself too much. Issei clenched his fists, his voice cracking. I have to. If I don't get stronger, Bucca will. Ria stepped forward, her expression calm but firm. Issei. You can't brute force this. Control, not recklessness. But. His teeth clenched. He called me trash. He called Asia-chan weak. He looked at you like you were just property. His gauntlet pulsed weakly, flickering. I won't forgive him. Issei shouted, slamming his fist into the ground. I'll get stronger. I swear it. The jewel responded faintly. Boost. Asia's eyes glistened as she whispered, Issei-san. I walked over, crouching in front of him with a grin. Good speech. But right now? You fight like a drunk turtle. Issei snapped his head up, face red. What's that supposed to mean? It means slow and clumsy, I answered casually. Akeno chuckled softly behind me, her hand covering her mouth. Era. How cruel. Konako chewed a cookie she'd pulled from her pocket. True. Issei groaned, dropping his head again. Ugh. Asia patted his shoulder gently. You'll get better. I know you will. Issei looked at her, his face softening. Asia-chan. I smirked. See? She believes in you. Don't screw it up. His face turned red instantly. Shut up. Ria's voice cut through again. Enough. Take a short break, Issei. Then we'll continue. He nodded reluctantly, sitting back on the ground with Asia beside him. The others had already started. Kaiba's blade moved in precise arcs as he practiced forms, his speed blurring in flashes of steel. Konako lifted massive stones like they were nothing, her small frame belying her strength. Akeno hovered lightly in the air, her lightning sparking in careful streams as she balanced demonic energy with holy voltage. Ria stood overseeing them all, her eyes sharp, her presence steady. I leaned against the rock again, smirking. Guess I'll let them sweat before I show off. Hours passed with repeated drills. Issei pushed himself again and again, each boost heavier than the last. He collapsed multiple times, Asia always rushing to his side with worried eyes. Konako's blunt remarks cut into him, but Asia's gentle words pulled him back up. By midday, his shirt clung to his back with sweat, his arms trembling as he struggled to lift them. Boost, he shouted desperately, his gauntlet pulsing. His punch cracked the dirt, but his body gave out, collapsing face first. Issei-san! Asia cried, kneeling beside him, healing light covering his battered body. He groaned, rolling onto his back, staring up at the sky. Damn it, why can't I? Ria stood over him, her eyes calm but her voice sharper. Because you're rushing. This will take time. You cannot force power out of the boosted gear by screaming at it. Issei clenched his teeth. But I don't have time. I crouched beside him again, smirking. Then stop whining and keep trying. Issei glared at me. Easy for you to say. You're already stupidly strong. Yup, I said cheerfully. He groaned loudly, throwing his arms over his face. You're the worst. Asia giggled softly, covering her mouth. You two, always fight. Issei peeked at her through his arms, his face red. It's not like that. She smiled gently, her healing light glowing brighter. I believe in you, Issei-san. You'll get stronger. I know it. His fists clenched again, his gauntlet flickering faintly. Then I'll prove it. By the time the sun began to set, Issei was barely standing, his legs shaking. Asia supported him on one side, her small frame steady despite her nerves. Rias dismissed the group for the evening, her tone firm. Rest. Tomorrow, we continue. Issei groaned, collapsing onto the ground again. Ugh. Asia crouched beside him instantly. Issei-san. He forced a weak grin. I am fine, really. I smirked, walking past them. You look fine. Like a squashed bug. Shut up, he shouted, voice cracking. Asia giggled again, her hands covering her smile. The day had ended, but the training had only just begun. Chapter 30, The Weight on Rias. Night had fallen by the time training wrapped up. The grounds were empty now, the crimson barrier that surrounded the field fading into nothing. Everyone had gone home. Issei had collapsed halfway back to the clubroom, with Asia and Kaiba helping him along. Konako walked quietly beside them, finishing the last of her cookies. Akeno had giggled softly as she teased him for his whining, her lightning crackling faintly in the night air. Rias had dismissed them all with her usual poise. I stayed behind. The lamps of the training ground flickered faintly, casting long shadows across the dirt. Rias stood alone at the far edge, her back to me, her long crimson hair swaying in the breeze. Her arms were folded, her gaze fixed on the night sky above the barrier's faint outline. I shoved my hands into my pockets and strolled up behind her. You planning on staring at the stars all night? She didn't turn, though I saw her shoulders tighten slightly. I didn't expect you to linger. Yup, I said with a grin. I don't follow expectations. Finally, she turned her head, her sharp blue-green eyes meeting mine. Why are you here? Because you're still here, I answered simply. She frowned slightly. That's not an answer. Sure it is, I said cheerfully. She sighed, shaking her head faintly before looking back at the sky. You're insufferable sometimes. Yup, I agreed. For a while, silence stretched between us. The night was calm, the faint rustle of leaves the only sound. Then Rias spoke again, her voice lower now. Do you think we have a chance? I tilted my head, smirking. Against Riser? Yes. Yup. Her eyes flicked toward me, narrowing. You're confident? Always, I said casually. It annoys people, but it's true. She studied me quietly before sighing again. Sometimes I wish I could be that sure. Then I replied. Her lips pressed together. It's not that simple. Sure it is. I stepped closer, hands still in my pockets. You don't like Riser. You don't want the marriage. So you fight. End of story. Her gaze hardened. It isn't that simple. This isn't just about me. It's about my family. About the Gremory name. About what's expected of me. I shrugged. So? You're still Rias. Not just a name. She looked at me sharply, her eyes flashing. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I smirked. Yup. I don't care about pressure. For a moment, she just stared at me, then let out a faint, humorless laugh. You're ridiculous. Yup, I said again, grinning. Her eyes softened slightly, her voice quieter now. But maybe that's why you're here. I leaned back against the training ground's stone wall, tilting my head. You're strong, Rias. Stronger than you think. And if you're not, well, I tapped my chest lightly. That's what the rest of us are for. Her gaze lingered on me, unreadable. You talk as if victory is guaranteed. Because it is, I said simply. She looked away, back toward the stars. You make it sound so easy. Yup, I said with a grin. That's because it is. Silence again. This time, it wasn't heavy. Rias finally exhaled, a small, tired smile tugging at her lips. Thank you. I smirked. You saying you like me? Her eyes narrowed instantly, her cheeks faintly pink. Don't push your luck. Yup, I said cheerfully. She shook her head, but her smile lingered faintly. You should go. It's late. You're still here, I pointed out. Her gaze softened again. I need a moment longer. Fair enough, I said, pushing off the wall. But don't stay out too late. You'll get wrinkles. Her eyes widened, her voice sharp. Wrinkles. I grinned, turning as I walked off. Yup. Behind me, I heard her faint huff, followed by something that almost sounded like a laugh. Chapter 31, Sweat and Strain. The next morning came quickly. The Occult Research Club gathered at the training grounds again, the crimson barrier rising high around the wide field. The ground was already marked with cracks and dents from yesterday's efforts. Rias stood at the center, her hands folded calmly in front of her. Her blue-green eyes swept across her peerage with a sharp gaze. Yesterday was only the beginning. Today, we push harder. Each of you has a role, and you will sharpen it until it cuts. Yup, I said with a grin, leaning casually against a boulder. Sounds fun. Issei groaned, tugging at his shirt collar. His face was still pale from yesterday. Bibuku, can we, maybe, go a little easier today? No, Rias said plainly. Issei wilted. Figured. Asia clutched her hands in front of her chest, her expression nervous. Issei-san, you should pace yourself. He forced a shaky grin, trying to sound brave. I'll be fine, Asia-chan. Don't worry about me. Yup, I said. Until he faints again. Shut up, he shouted, pointing at me with his gauntlet. Akeno covered her mouth, giggling softly. Aira, Aira. You two never change. Konako blinked at us, chewing on a cookie she had pulled from her skirt pocket. Annoying. Kaiba smiled politely, stepping forward. Shall we begin, Bucko? Rias nodded. Yes. Everyone, into position. The training began in earnest. Kaiba blurred across the field, his sword flashing in the morning light. Each swing was precise, controlled. His footwork barely stirred the dust as he moved, but the force behind each strike sent ripples of energy through the ground. Rias watched him carefully. Good. But faster. You'll need to outpace Riser's entire front line. Kaiba bowed his head briefly before resuming, his movements sharpening even further. Konako gripped massive boulders, her small frame straining against their weight. With each lift, she grunted softly, sweat dotting her forehead, but she didn't stop. Ria's voice cut across. More, Konako. You'll need to withstand the full brunt of Riser's peerage. Konako dropped one boulder with a loud thud, caught her breath, then lifted another without complaint. Akeno floated above the field, sparks of lightning dancing across her hands. Her demonic power surged in controlled bursts as she guided the electricity into patterns that cracked the dirt below. Too slow, Rias said, her tone sharp. Akeno giggled softly, adjusting her focus. Her next strike lanced downward faster, leaving a deep black scar in the earth. Meanwhile, Asia sat cross-legged on the ground, focusing on her twilight healing. Her hands glowed with soft green light as she touched Issei's arm, soothing the strain from his muscles. Ha! Issei exhaled loudly, sweat dripping down his forehead. That, actually feels better. Thanks, Asia-chan. She smiled softly. I am glad I can help. Rias approached them, her gaze firm. Asia, you must learn to heal quickly, even while under pressure. We will simulate that. Asia blinked nervously. Simulate. Before she could react, Kaiba slashed his sword downward near her, the blade stopping an inch from her shoulder. Asia yelped, trembling. Ria's voice was steady. Focus. Heal him even while distracted. Asia's breath trembled, but she placed her hands back on Issei's arm. Her glow returned, steadier this time. Issei sat stiff as a board. "Wo. Bucko, was that really necessary?" "Yup," I said from behind him. He snapped his head toward me, his face red. "You're enjoying this?" "Yup." Asia giggled nervously, though her healing light didn't fade. Then came Issei's turn to push himself. He clenched his gauntlet, the jewel pulsing. Boost! The surge made his knees wobble, but he gritted his teeth, throwing a punch into the air. A shockwave of dirt and wind erupted in front of him, but his arm trembled violently afterward. Again, Rias ordered. He swallowed hard, sweat dripping down his chin. "All right. Boost!" The jewel pulsed again, the weight doubling. His arms shook uncontrollably. He staggered, almost falling, but Asia rushed to steady him. "Issei-san," she cried. "I'm fine," he wheezed. I can do this." Boost! The gauntlet pulsed again. His body strained under the force, and he collapsed to his knees, panting. Asia bent beside him instantly, her healing light glowing as she touched his shoulder. "Please, rest, even for a moment." He clenched his fists. "I can't. Bucko needs me." "Idiot," Konako said bluntly, carrying another boulder. "Yup," I added with a grin. "Why do you both keep saying that?" Issei shouted, face red. Akeno giggled softly above us. "Ara, Ara. Because it's true." Issei groaned, his head dropping. "Ugh." But even then, his gauntlet pulsed faintly. Boost! Asia gasped softly, her eyes wide. "Issei-san." Rias folded her arms, her expression unreadable. "He's stubborn. That will either be his greatest strength, or his downfall." I grinned. "Yup." The hours passed with repetition. Kaiba's blades cut sharper, Konako lifted heavier, Akeno's lightning grew faster. Asia's hands trembled less each time she healed under pressure. And Issei kept collapsing. But each time, he got back up. Shakier, sweatier, redder in the face but always standing. By evening, he was on his back, his chest heaving, his arms limp. Asia sat beside him, her hands glowing as she poured healing into his exhausted body. Rias stood over him, her gaze sharp. "That's enough for today." Issei groaned, raising a weak fist. I can keep going." "No, you can't," Rias said flatly. He groaned again, dropping his fist. "Fine." Asia smiled softly, patting his shoulder. "You worked very hard, Issei-san." His cheeks flushed faintly. "Thanks, Asia-chan." I smirked, walking past them. "Not bad, turtle." He glared weakly. "Shut up." "Yup," I said cheerfully. Asia giggled softly, her hands covering her mouth. By the time we left the training grounds, the sky was painted with fading orange light. The group walked slowly, tired but steady. Rias trailed slightly ahead, her posture still perfect, her presence firm. Behind her, Akeno hummed softly, Kaiba spoke quietly with Asia, and Konako crunched another cookie. Issei limped along, supported on one side by Asia, muttering about chicken bastards under his breath. I stretched, grinning. Day 2 down. Yup, I added again, smirking as Issei groaned. Chapter 32, A Brother's Shadow. The club room was quiet that evening. The lamps glowed softly, the air heavy with the exhaustion from training. Everyone had returned to their usual uniforms, though their faces showed the fatigue of the day. Asia sat on the sofa, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her head tilting slightly as she tried not to nod off. Issei sat slouched beside her, groaning softly as he rubbed his sore arms. Kaiba leaned against the wall with his usual polite composure, though his breathing was faintly heavier than normal. Konako was perched on the armrest, munching a cookie as though the day hadn't affected her at all. Akeno poured tea with her soft smile, her calm voice humming a faint tune. Ria sat at her desk, her posture perfect despite the faint weariness in her eyes. She looked over the group quietly, her fingers tapping once against the table before she folded her hands together. The calm didn't last. A magic circle lit up on the polished wooden floor, its glow crimson and gold. The air in the room shifted instantly, heavier, thicker. The pattern was intricate, refined, unlike any of the simple ones Rias used. Everyone sat up straighter. Asia gasped softly, clutching her skirt. Issei scrambled upright, his gauntlet flickering faintly in response to the overwhelming aura. The light rose high before dimming, and two figures stood in the circle. A tall man with long crimson hair, his presence warm yet immense. His expression was gentle, but his aura pressed down like a mountain. And beside him, a silver-haired woman in a maid uniform, her poise flawless, her gaze calm and sharp. "Brother," Rias whispered. Surtsk's Lucifer smiled warmly, spreading his arms slightly. "Rias. It's been too long." Graphia Lucifuge bowed her head slightly. "Good evening, everyone." The room was silent for a moment, all eyes on the two figures. Issei's jaw dropped. Wait. That's your brother." Asia blinked rapidly, her voice small. "He feels so strong." Kaiba straightened, bowing politely. "Surtsk-sama. Graphia-sama." Akeno giggled softly, bowing her head. "Era, Era. What an honor." Konako munched another bite of her cookie, her voice flat. "Powerful." I leaned back on the sofa, grinning. "So this is the famous big brother. Not bad hair." Surtsk's eyes flicked to me, amused. "And you are?" "Meliodas," I said with a smirk. "Ria's new toy." "Toy?" Ria snapped instantly, her cheeks pink. "Yup," I replied cheerfully. Akeno covered her mouth, giggling. "Era, Era." Issei shouted, his face red. "Don't just say stuff like that in front of her brother." Surtsk chuckled softly, his presence warm despite the weight of his aura. "I see you've brought in quite the interesting member, Rias." Graphia's eyes lingered on me for a moment, calm but sharp. "Strange." Rias folded her arms, glaring at me briefly before turning to her brother. "Why are you here, brother?" Surtsk stepped forward, his expression softening. "To see you, of course. And to check on how you're preparing for your raiding game." The room stiffened at his words. Asia's hands clasped tighter in her lap, Issei's jaw tightening as he muttered under his breath. Ria's voice was steady. "We're preparing." Surtsk studied her carefully, his gaze warm but firm. Riser is not an opponent to take lightly. His regeneration makes him difficult to defeat, and his peerage is numerous and experienced. "We know," Rias said sharply. Surtsk's smile didn't falter, though his tone softened. "Rias. I don't doubt your resolve. But this isn't just about you. If you lose." "I won't lose," she cut him off, her eyes burning. The silence stretched. Asia glanced nervously between them, her lips parting before closing again. Issei clenched his fists, his gauntlet flickering faintly. I grinned. She won't lose. Because I'm here. Surtsk chuckled again, his eyes twinkling faintly. Confident, aren't you? Yup. Grafia finally spoke, her tone even. Confidence is only useful if backed by strength. Good thing I've got both, I replied lightly. Rias shot me a glare, but her brother smiled faintly. I like him. Brother. Rias snapped, cheeks pink again. Issei waved his arms frantically. Bibuku, how can you let him talk like that? Yup, I said cheerfully. Akeno's soft giggle filled the room again, covering her mouth with delicate fingers. Surtsk finally exhaled, stepping closer to his sister. He rested a hand on her shoulder gently. I know you don't want this marriage. I know how much you hate it. But if you lose... I won't, she repeated firmly. For a long moment, brother and sister stared at each other. Then Surtsk's smile softened again. Then I'll trust you. Rias blinked, her eyes widening slightly. Brother. He squeezed her shoulder lightly before stepping back. Just know. I'll be watching. Grafia straightened slightly. We should return soon. Surtsk nodded, turning to the rest of us. Fight well. Protect my sister. That's all I ask. Kaiba bowed deeply. We will, Surtsk-sama. Konako nodded once, finishing her cookie. Okay. Akeno's smile glinted. Of course. Asia placed her hands over her heart, her voice soft but steady. I'll do my best. Issei clenched his fist, shouting. I'll protect Buku no matter what. I smirked. Yup. Surtsk chuckled warmly again, his crimson aura flickering faintly as the magic circle beneath him reignited. Then I look forward to seeing the results. The crimson light rose, engulfing him and Grafia. In a flash, they were gone. The room was silent again, the weight of his presence lingering. Rias exhaled slowly, her fists clenched at her sides. I'll win. No matter what. I grinned, leaning back again. Yup. Chapter 33, The Game Begins. The teleportation circle's glow faded, and the world around us shifted. I looked up at the familiar shape of Kua Academy. Or rather, a perfect recreation of it. The schoolyard, the main building, the gymnasium, all conjured down to the smallest detail. It looked identical, but the air was different, charged, heavy. A battlefield crafted by devil magic. Grafia Lucifuge's voice carried clearly through the grounds, calm and professional. This rating game will be between Rias Gremari's peerage and Riser Fenix's peerage. The battlefield is Kua Academy. Victory is achieved by eliminating the enemy's peerage or defeating the opposing king. I stuffed my hands into my pockets and smirked. Well, they went all out. Issei looked around nervously, sweat already forming on his forehead. So this is it, the rating game. It looks just like school. Asia tugged gently at her skirt, her voice small. It's so real, but it feels strange. Kaiba nodded politely, scanning the surroundings. The reproduction is perfect. But remember, everything here is part of the game. It can all be destroyed. Konako crouched slightly, touching the ground with her hand before popping another cookie into her mouth. Annoying. Akeno giggled softly, her violet eyes glinting as she hovered slightly off the ground. Era. I can't wait to see what they throw at us. Ria stood at the front, her arms folded, her crimson hair flowing behind her. She looked over her peerage, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. This is it. Remember everything you've trained for. Don't let Riser's numbers intimidate you. Numbers. Issei repeated nervously. Before anyone could answer, another circle glowed brightly across the field. Flames roared, and with them came laughter. Riser Fenix appeared, stepping out of the fire with his arrogant smile, his blonde hair slick, his suit immaculate despite the battlefield setting. Behind him came his peerage 15 in total. Women, mostly, dressed in revealing outfits, each carrying themselves with smug confidence. Rias, my darling, Riser said loudly, spreading his arms. I trust you're ready to accept your fate and come with me once this is over. Rias' eyes narrowed. Not a chance, Riser. He smirked. We'll see. Issei clenched his fists, his gauntlet flickering faintly. Damn bastard! Asia shrank slightly behind him, her hands clasping tightly in front of her chest. So many. Kaiba's expression stayed calm, though his eyes sharpened. A full peerage. Konako muttered flatly. Chicken. I grinned, waving casually at Riser. Hey, nice harem. Riser's eyes snapped to me, narrowing slightly. And who are you supposed to be? Meliodas, I answered cheerfully. The guy who's going to make this fun. He scoffed. Another pawn in Ria's sad little group, I see. Yup, I said with a smirk. Ria stepped forward, her voice cutting sharp. Grafia, begin. Grafia's voice carried clearly once more. The rating game begins now. Good luck to both sides. The magic surged around us. The game had begun. The peerage gathered quickly around Rias. She raised her hand, projecting a map of the academy grounds. Red and gold markers glowed faintly on the image. We don't match Riser in numbers, she said, her tone calm but commanding. So we will rely on strategy. Kaiba, Konako, you'll scout and intercept where needed. Akeno, provide support from the air. Asia, you'll stay back and focus on healing. Issei. He jumped at his name. Why yes, Baku. Stay with me for now, she said firmly. We'll manage your promotion when the time is right. He nodded furiously, his fists trembling. Are right. Asia smiled nervously at him, whispering. You can do it, Issei-san. He scratched his cheek, blushing. Why yet? Ria's gaze shifted to me. And you? I smirked. Guess I'll do what I want. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Within reason. Yup, I said with a grin. Akeno covered her mouth, giggling softly. Era. You two are fun to watch. Konako blinked at me, her expression flat. Still a pervert. Yup, I replied instantly. Her ears twitched faintly as she turned away. The first clash came quickly. Kaiba dashed ahead, his sword flashing as he intercepted one of Riser's pawns near the gymnasium. His speed blurred as he weaved between blows, his blade slicing through her defenses. She collapsed in a flash of light, eliminated instantly. First down, Kaiba said calmly, reappearing beside us. Good, Ria said. Keep moving. Don't stop. From above, Akeno's lightning cracked through the air, striking two of Riser's pawns who had tried to flank us. They screamed before vanishing in light. Akeno smiled sweetly, her voice soft. Era. Too easy. Issei clenched his fist, his gauntlet glowing. Boost. The jewel pulsed, and he grinned nervously. Hey, I think I'm getting used to this. Don't get cocky, Rias warned. Why yes, Baku. Asia stood behind him, her healing light faintly glowing as she kept her focus steady. Her expression was nervous, but her hands didn't shake this time. Riser's laughter echoed from across the field. Is this it, Rias? You've taken out a few pawns, but you're still far outnumbered. Then I'll just take out more, I said lightly, stepping forward. Ria's eyes narrowed. Don't overdo it. Yup. The battlefield split. Konako charged headlong into a fight near the schoolyard, her small frame moving with raw power as she punched one of Riser's knights through a wall. Dust exploded, but she didn't flinch. Kaiba weaved through another group, his sword clashing in sparks as he struck down an enemy rook. Akeno hovered higher, her lightning raining down in sharp bursts, scattering groups that tried to advance. Issei gritted his teeth, struggling as his boosts stacked, sweat dripping down his face. Bibaku. I can't hold this much longer. Stay focused. Rias snapped. Asia's hands glowed brighter, pouring energy into him. Please, hold on, Issei-san. He clenched his fists, nodding. All right. Boost. The jewel pulsed again, shaking his whole body. I grinned, stepping past him. Don't worry, I'll keep you alive until you figure it out. Shut up, he yelled, his face red. Yup. Then Riser himself appeared, his wings of fire spreading as he hovered above the main building. His peerage gathered around him, their numbers still overwhelming despite our early wins. He smirked down at us, his voice booming. Rias. You can't win. Just surrender and accept your place at my side. Rias glared up at him, her aura flaring. Never. Issei shouted, pointing his gauntlet. Like hell she will. Asia trembled slightly, clutching her skirt tighter, but her eyes shone with quiet determination. We won't lose. I smirked, looking up at Riser. Hey, chicken. Ready to get plucked? His eyes snapped to me, his face twisting in anger. You'll regret mocking me. Yup, I said with a grin. But you'll regret more. The first true clash was about to begin. Chapter 34, Breaking the Lines. The recreated Kyoa Academy rumbled with the sound of combat. Dust and sparks filled the air as Ria's peerage clashed with Riser's. Kaiba darted through the courtyard, his sword flashing as he engaged one of Riser's knights. Their blades collided in sharp bursts, the clang ringing across the grounds. His speed was overwhelming, his footwork sharp as he slipped past her guard and slashed her side. She let out a cry before vanishing in a flash of light. That makes 3, Kaiba said, his voice calm as he turned to intercept the next. Not far from him, Konako slammed her fist into one of Riser's rooks. The impact cracked the ground, sending a shockwave outward. Her opponent staggered back, coughing blood before disappearing in light. Konako stepped forward again without a word, her small frame moving like a wrecking ball. Strong, she muttered quietly as another of Riser's pieces charged her. High above, Akeno hovered gracefully, her hands sparking with violet lightning. With a soft giggle, she unleashed a volley downward. The bolts struck 2 of Riser's pawns, their screams cut short as they vanished. Era, Era. Too easy, she said with a smile, her hair fluttering in the charged wind. Issei stood near the school entrance, panting heavily as his gauntlet pulsed. Boost! The jewel glowed, and he charged forward, swinging his fist into one of Riser's pawns. The impact cracked the air, sending the enemy flying back into a wall before disappearing. I actually got one, he shouted, eyes wide with shock. Asia clapped her hands together softly, smiling. Amazing, Issei-san. He scratched his cheek, laughing nervously. Haha, it wasn't that big a deal. Yup, I said from the side, grinning. It was small. He spun toward me instantly, face red. Don't ruin the moment. Yup, I replied cheerfully. He groaned loudly. Ugh. Asia giggled softly, her hands over her mouth. The ground shook again as another wave of Riser's peerage advanced. A group of pawns and a rook surged forward toward us. Rias raised her hand, crimson spheres swirling into existence around her. Don't let them surround us. Push them back. Understood. Kaiba said, dashing into the group with his blade. Sparks flew as he clashed with their weapons, his strikes clean and fast. Konako leapt forward, her fist smashing into the chest of another pawn. The impact launched him across the yard, the light consuming him before he even hit the ground. Akeno's lightning struck again, scattering the enemies as her voice rang sweet and calm. Aira, Aira, don't tell me that's all you've got. Issei shouted, clenching his gauntlet. Boost! The surge hit, and he swung again, his punch colliding with an enemy rook's guard. The clash forced him back, his knees trembling under the strain. Damn it! Issei grunted, struggling. Asia gasped, her hands glowing as she stepped forward. Issei-san, don't push too hard. He gritted his teeth. I have to. Baku's counting on me. The rook swung again, her blow nearly connecting, but I stepped in casually. My hand caught her fist mid-swing, stopping it cold. Her eyes widened. What? I smirked. Not bad. But not good enough. With a flick of my wrist, I twisted her arm and flung her into the wall. The impact cracked stone, and she vanished in light. Issei collapsed onto his knees, panting hard. Thanks. Yup, I said, patting his head. Don't pat me like a kid, he shouted, face red. Asia giggled again, her healing glow soothing his shaking arms. More of Riser's peerage advanced. A pair of bishops floated near the main building, casting spells down at us. Crimson and gold magic blasts erupted, tearing through the courtyard. Rias raised her hand, her spheres intercepting them mid-air, exploding in bursts of light. She narrowed her eyes. Akeno. Of course, Rias, Akeno replied sweetly. She rose higher, her magic circle glowing as her lightning speared through the air, striking one bishop. The scream was brief before she vanished. The other tried to retreat, but Kaiba flashed upward along the wall, his sword piercing through her defenses. She vanished instantly. That makes 5, Kaiba said as he landed lightly. Keep going, Rias ordered. The peerage pressed harder, and the courtyard became chaos. Konako fought like a tank, blocking 2 at once, her fists breaking through guards with brutal efficiency. Kaiba darted between groups, his blade always finding a weakness. Akeno rained destruction from above, her soft giggles echoing through the battlefield. Issei stumbled through fights, sometimes landing hits, often barely surviving, but Asia was always there, her healing glow steady, her voice soft and reassuring. And me? I walked through the battlefield casually, cutting down enemies with one hand, smirking the whole way. Too slow, I said, catching a spear of light and breaking it in half before punching its wielder across the field. Another tried sneaking up from behind. Without turning, my foot kicked back, sending him flying through a window before he vanished in light. Yup. After a long stretch, the courtyard cleared. Half of Riser's pawns were gone, along with a bishop and a rook. The field quieted, dust settling around us. Issei collapsed to the ground, panting. Ha! I can't. I can't move anymore. Asia bent beside him instantly, her hands glowing as she placed them on his arm. Please, hold on, Issei-san, you're doing so well. He forced a shaky grin, his cheeks red. Thanks, Asia-chan. Konako walked back, brushing dust from her skirt. Weaklings. Kaiba sheathed his sword, his polite smile never faltering. They fought well, but it wasn't enough. Akeno floated down, her smile serene. Ara, Ara. That was fun. Rhea stood tall, her aura still strong, her voice calm but firm. This was only the first wave. Riser won't take this lying down. Stay ready. Yup, I said, smirking. Let's make it fun. From the far side of the academy, Riser's laughter echoed again, his flames flickering high into the air. Not bad, Rias. You've taken out some of my pieces, but this game is far from over. His remaining peerage began to gather, their presence heavier than before. The real fight was coming. Chapter 35, The Pawn Overreaches. The courtyard still smoked from the last clash. Rubble and scorch marks lined the ground. The air was thick with the lingering energy of spells and lightning. Rhea stood tall, her gaze sharp as she scanned the map floating in her hand. Red and gold dots blinked steadily across the image. Half of Riser's pawns are gone. We've eliminated a rook and a bishop as well. But he still holds the advantage in numbers. Issei groaned, slumping against the wall of the main building. His chest heaved, sweat dripping down his forehead as his gauntlet flickered faintly. Ha! Ha! I can still fight. Asia knelt beside him, her hands glowing softly as she pressed them against his arm. Please, Issei-san, don't push yourself so hard. He gave her a shaky grin, his face pale. I have to, Asia-chan. If I don't, then what good am I? Yup, I said from the side, smirking. Useless if you pass out. Issei snapped his head toward me, face red. Shut up. I'm not useless. Yup, I said again, grinning wider. He groaned loudly. Ugh. Konako munched quietly on a cookie, her flat voice breaking in. Idiot. Kaiba chuckled softly, though his sword remained drawn. At least he's motivated. Akeno hovered slightly above the ground, sparks flickering around her. Ara, his spirit is admirable, if nothing else. Issei clenched his gauntlet tighter, the jewel pulsing faintly. Boost. The surge hit his body, and he staggered forward. Ha! I can keep going. Asia's hands trembled as she reached out again. Issei-san. Before she could speak further, the ground shook. Flames roared at the far side of the courtyard, and a group of Riser's pieces appeared: 3 pawns, a bishop, and one of his knights. Their expressions were smug, their weapons gleaming in the firelight. More trash, Konako muttered, stepping forward. Rias lifted her hand, crimson spheres forming. Don't underestimate them. Eliminate them quickly. Yes, Baku. Kaiba said, dashing ahead to intercept the knight. Their blades clashed instantly, sparks flying. Akeno's lightning crackled overhead, raining down toward the bishop. She laughed softly. Ara, let's see how long you last. Konako slammed her fist into one pawn, the impact sending him flying across the yard before he vanished in light. Another rushed her, but she blocked with ease, her counterpunch breaking his guard. Issei staggered forward, his gauntlet glowing. Boost. The jewel pulsed again, his body trembling harder. He threw his fist into the last pawn, the impact shattering the ground and sending the enemy collapsing in light. He gasped, his knees buckling. Ha! I did it! Issei-san! Asia cried, rushing forward as he fell to one knee. Her healing glow surrounded him instantly. Please, you can't keep doing this. I am fine, he wheezed. I can still. Yup, I said, crouching in front of him with a smirk. Still useless if you drop dead. His face reddened instantly. I said I'm fine. Your arm says otherwise, I replied, tapping his trembling gauntlet. The jewel pulsed weakly. Boost, it sounded strained, as if even the sacred gear itself was reaching its limit. Asia bit her lip, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. I can't keep up, his body is breaking faster than I can heal. Ria's gaze sharpened. Issei, enough. He shook his head furiously, clenching his fist tighter. And no. If I stop now, then I'm just dead weight. I won't let that chicken bastard take you away, Bucku. His gauntlet pulsed again. Boost. The surge nearly knocked him off his feet. He stumbled, coughing violently. Idiot, Konako said flatly, blocking another strike from the knight. Yup, I agreed, catching a spell mid-air from the bishop and breaking it apart with my hand before punching him into the wall. The bishop vanished in light instantly. Issei collapsed to both knees this time, his arms limp at his sides. Damn it! Asia dropped down beside him, her glow intensifying as she tried to keep him together. Please, stop. You'll collapse if you keep this up. He clenched his teeth, his eyes burning. I don't care. I have to. I sighed, standing in front of him as another of Riser's pawns charged. Without even looking, I flicked my wrist. The impact sent the enemy flying across the yard, disappearing in a flash. Take a break, turtle, I said lightly. Issei glared at me through the sweat and pain. Shut up. I can still. I crouched down, smirking in his face. You'll get your chance. But if you collapse now, you won't even see it. His gauntlet flickered weakly, then dimmed. His fist shook, but he didn't argue. Asia's healing light washed over him, her voice trembling but steady. Please, just rest for now, Issei-san, you've already done so much. He stared at her, his breath ragged, before finally nodding faintly. Fine, but just for a second. She smiled in relief, tears shimmering in her eyes. Thank you. I patted his head again. Good boy. Don't treat me like a kid, he muttered, blushing faintly. Yup, I said with a grin. Asia giggled softly, her healing glow never faltering. The fight continued around us. Kaiba drove his sword through Riser's knight, the clash ending in a clean finish as the enemy vanished in light. He turned back calmly, wiping the blade. That's another one down. Konako walked back from the rubble, brushing dust off her skirt. Weak. Akeno floated down, her smile serene as sparks faded from her hands. Era. That was satisfying. Rias dismissed her spheres, her voice sharp. Good work. But Riser still has more than half his peerage left. This isn't over. Issei groaned, trying to push himself up, but Asia's hands held him down gently. Please, don't yet. He met her eyes, saw the pleading there, and stopped struggling. All right, just don't let me fall too far behind. You won't, she whispered, her cheeks pink. I grinned. She's got you on a leash. Issei shouted instantly, his face red. She does not. Yup, I replied casually. Asia giggled again, her hands glowing brighter. The courtyard quieted once more, rubble and scorch marks marking every corner. The group gathered, Ria's eyes narrowing as she looked at the map again. Riser's remaining pieces clustered together, preparing for the next assault. The air grew heavier. The hardest part of the fight was coming. Chapter 36, Pressing the Attack. The courtyard was scarred with rubble, scorch marks, and craters from the last wave. Dust still floated through the air. Ria stood at the center, her arms folded, eyes on the floating map before her. The golden markers representing Riser's peerage pulsed together on one side of the school. Her voice cut sharp. He's grouping his forces. He's sending his stronger pieces all at once. A ripple of tension ran through the group. Issei groaned as he sat against the wall, Asia still healing him. He wiped sweat from his brow, his gauntlet faintly glowing again. He's sending more already. Asia looked down, her healing light glowing brighter. Please don't fight yet, Issei-san, your body still isn't ready. I'll be fine, Asia-chan, he muttered, trying to sound brave. Yup, I said with a grin. Fine until you keel over. He snapped his head at me, face red. Shut up. Yup. Akeno floated down, her long hair drifting in the wind. Era, it seems things are finally getting interesting. Kaiba rested his hand on his sword, his tone polite but steady. We'll need to be careful. If they're pressing this hard, they'll want to overwhelm us. Konako chewed the last of her cookie, her voice flat. Good. I'll crush them. Rias lowered the map, her blue-green eyes narrowing. They're coming. The ground trembled before flames erupted near the gymnasium. From the fire, 5 figures emerged. 2 rooks, towering and heavily built. 2 knights, slim and quick, swords glinting. And 1 bishop, her staff glowing faintly. All of them women, their expressions smug, their confidence unshaken. One of the rooks smirked. So, these are the little toys Rias is hiding behind. The bishop giggled cruelly. This will be easy. Not really, I said casually, stepping forward with a grin. Their eyes snapped toward me, narrowing. Cocky. Yup. Rias raised her hand. Split them up. Kaiba, take the knights. Konako, handle the rooks. Akeno, the bishop is yours. Asia, stay back. Issei. I can fight. Issei shouted, staggering upright. Rias' eyes hardened. No. Not yet. He flinched, but Asia tugged at his sleeve softly. Please listen. Fine, he muttered, sitting back down, clenching his fists. Rias' gaze shifted to me. Assist where needed. But don't get reckless. I smirked. Yup. The clashes erupted instantly. Kaiba blurred forward, his sword flashing against the 2 knights. Sparks rang as their blades collided, his movements precise, their speed nearly matching his. He ducked under 1 strike, countered with a clean slash, then spun to block the other. Konako charged straight at the 2 rooks, her small frame colliding with one in a shockwave. The ground cracked beneath their clash. She gritted her teeth, fists slamming into the giant woman's torso. The rook swung back, forcing her to block and slide across the courtyard. Akeno's hands crackled with violet lightning as she floated higher, her circle glowing. Era. I'll make this quick. She unleashed a burst downward, the bishop countering with glowing shields that cracked under the assault. I stood casually in the middle, watching. Yup. Busy place. One of the knights darted past Kaiba, blade swinging toward me. I raised my hand, catching it casually. The knight's eyes widened. What? I smirked. Too slow. My knee shot into her stomach, sending her flying back across the yard before she vanished in light. Yup, I said cheerfully. Kaiba glanced my way, offering a faint nod before turning back to duel the other. Konako grunted as the rooks pressed her, their sheer size overwhelming. She blocked 1 strike, only for the other to slam her shoulder. She slid back, dust kicking up around her feet. Strong, she muttered. Need a hand? I asked, strolling toward her. Her golden eyes flicked to me, her tone flat. Don't get in the way. I smirked. Yup. The rook charged me, her massive fist swinging. I caught it in one hand, halting it mid-swing. Her eyes went wide. What? Not bad, I said lightly. But weak. With a twist, I flung her over my shoulder and slammed her into the ground. The impact cracked the stone, and she vanished instantly. The other rook froze, eyes wide. Konako stepped forward, her fist smashing into the rook's chest. The woman choked, light consuming her instantly. Konako dusted her hands, muttering. Mine. Yup, I said, grinning. Above, Akeno giggled softly as her lightning overwhelmed the bishop's shields. The blast struck her directly, her scream short as she vanished. Aira, too fragile, Akeno said sweetly, lowering herself back down. Kaiba finally ended his duel, his blade slicing across the last knight's chest. She staggered, light taking her as she collapsed. Kaiba sheathed his sword with a calm breath. That's finished. The courtyard was quiet again. Dust and rubble remained where Riser's pieces had fallen. Issei stared wide-eyed from the wall, his fists trembling. They're so strong. Asia smiled gently, placing her hand on his shoulder. And so are you, Issei-san. He blushed instantly, scratching his cheek. Asia-chan. Yup, I said with a grin. Keep staring, you'll fall over. His face turned red. I am not staring. Asia giggled softly. Rias looked over the group, her voice steady but sharp. Good work. But Riser still hasn't moved. He's waiting for us to tire out. Kaiba's polite tone cut in. Then we must keep our pace. Konako grabbed another cookie from her skirt pocket, biting into it calmly. Annoying chicken. Akeno chuckled lightly, sparks still fading from her hands. Aira. I'm looking forward to plucking him. Issei clenched his fist, his gauntlet flickering again. Boost. I'll get him. Asia gasped softly. Issei-san. Ria's eyes narrowed at the map. Stay focused. The next wave will be even harder. I smirked, stretching casually. Yup. Can't wait. From the far side of the academy, Riser's flames rose higher, his laughter echoing across the battlefield. His remaining peerage was gathering, stronger and angrier than before. The next clash was on its way. Chapter 37, The Phoenix Descends. The battlefield had fallen quiet again. Dust lingered in the air. Cracked stone and scorch marks covered the courtyard. Rias stood tall at the center, her crimson aura flickering faintly as she scanned the map. Only a handful of gold markers remained. They pulsed steadily in one place, the heart of the main building. Her voice was calm but sharp. He's stopped waiting. He's coming. Everyone tensed. Issei clenched his fists, his gauntlet pulsing weakly. The chicken bastard himself. Asia's hands fluttered nervously, her healing glow still faintly covering his arm. Issei-san, please, don't push yourself. He grinned weakly, trying to hide his nerves. I am fine, Asia-chan. Yup, I said, smirking. Fine until he cooks you. Issei snapped at me instantly, his face red. Shut up. Yup. Akeno floated slightly above the ground, sparks flickering in her hands. Aira, finally. I was starting to get bored. Kaiba rested his hand on his sword, his tone calm. This will be difficult. His regeneration makes him nearly impossible to put down. Konako bit into another cookie, her voice flat. Annoying chicken. Rias folded her arms, her blue-green eyes narrowing. Don't underestimate him. Riser is strong, and he's experienced. Yup, I said cheerfully. But still a chicken. Her gaze flicked to me, her lips tightening. Don't get reckless. Yup. The air rippled. Flames erupted across the far side of the courtyard, scorching the cracked stone. Riser Phoenix emerged, wings of fire spread wide, his expression smug and arrogant as ever. His suit remained pristine, his blonde hair untouched by the chaos of the battle. His eyes locked onto Rias instantly. "Rias, my darling," he called, his voice booming across the yard. "Still resisting? Still struggling? But this is where it ends." Rias glared back. "You won't win, Riser." He chuckled, flames curling around his shoulders. "I already have. Look at you. Exhausted. Weak. Relying on scraps. Compared to me, you're nothing." Issei's gauntlet flickered weakly, his voice shaking with anger. "Don't talk to Bucko like that, you bastard." Riser sneered at him. "A pawn barking at a king. Pathetic." "Yup," I said casually, stepping forward. "You're pathetic too." His eyes snapped to me, narrowing sharply. "And you are the loud little man Rias picked up. Meliodas, was it?" I grinned. "Yup. The guy who's going to roast you." Riser laughed loudly, the fire around him blazing brighter. "You? Against me? Foolish. I am immortal." "Yup," I said. "Until you're not." Flames surged as he raised his hand, a torrent of fire bursting toward us. Rhea stepped forward instantly, her crimson spheres forming around her. They clashed with the flames, the explosion rocking the courtyard and showering sparks across the field. "Spread out," she shouted. Kaiba darted left, his sword flashing as he circled. Akeno rose higher, lightning crackling across her arms. Konako dashed forward, her fists clenched. Issei staggered up, his gauntlet glowing faintly. Boost! His body trembled under the weight of it, but he stood. Asia gasped, rushing closer. "Issei-san, wait!" I am fine," he shouted, his voice trembling. I smirked, stepping toward Riser casually. "Come on, chicken. Let's see it." Riser's eyes narrowed, and with a roar, his flames exploded outward. He lunged forward, his fist wreathed in fire. I caught it with one hand. The fire seared the ground around us, but my grip didn't falter. "Not bad," I said lightly. "But weak." Riser's eyes widened. What? My fist slammed into his chest, sending him flying across the courtyard. He smashed into the wall, the stone cracking around him. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then he laughed. Slowly, he stood, his suit scorched, his body burned before the flames surged, knitting his wounds closed. His skin restored, his smirk returning. "Did you think that would work?" he sneered. "I am Riser Phoenix. I cannot be killed." Issei's eyes went wide. He's healing, just like that." Asia's hands trembled. "Incredible." Rias clenched her fists, her jaw tight. "This is his power." "Yup," I said, smirking. "Annoying bird." Riser growled, flames roaring around him as he lunged again. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Kaiba struck from the side, his blade slashing across Riser's arm. The wound sealed instantly, the flames knitting it together. "Pathetic," Riser sneered, backhanding Kaiba across the yard. Kaiba rolled, but landed on his feet, sword still in hand. Akeno's lightning speared down from above, striking Riser directly. His body convulsed for a moment before flames surged, burning the electricity away. "Era, troublesome," Akeno murmured, her smile never fading. Konako charged, her fists slamming into his torso. The impact forced him back a step, but he laughed, flames exploding outward and sending her skidding across the ground. Issei shouted, clenching his gauntlet. "Boost!" He staggered forward, his fist glowing red as he swung with everything he had. His punch collided with Riser's chest, the shockwave cracking the ground. Riser staggered then smirked as the wound sealed instantly. "Is that all?" he mocked, grabbing Issei by the collar and flinging him aside. "Issei-san!" Asia cried, rushing toward him, her healing glow already forming. Issei groaned, his body trembling. "Damn it!" I stepped forward again, smirking. "Yup. Weak chicken." Riser's flames roared as he turned to me. "You'll regret mocking me." "Yup," I said, grinning wider. "Try me." He lunged, his flames erupting into a storm. I met him head-on, our clash shaking the courtyard. His fists swung in bursts of fire, each strike powerful enough to break stone. I blocked them casually, my grin never fading. "Too slow," I said, dodging another swing before slamming my knee into his gut. He staggered, coughing, before his body healed again instantly. Riser snarled, flames exploding outward in a torrent that forced everyone else back. "You cannot win. I am eternal." I smirked. "Yup. Eternal chicken." His face twisted in fury as he charged again. From the side, Rias shouted. "Don't engage him directly for long. His regeneration makes it pointless." "Yup," I said casually, twisting around his next strike and slamming him into the ground. "But fun." Riser roared, flames exploding as he stood, his suit scorched again but his body unmarked. Issei clenched his fist, his gauntlet glowing weakly. I have to, help." "Boost." Asia's hands trembled as she poured healing into him. "Please, stop pushing yourself, Issei-san."